What is happening, people? Harry here from Scarfy Spurs. I do hope you're keeping well. So, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever and whenever you are listening. Thank you very much for joining us. We go big at Scarfy Spurs Talk, and I'm joined by three fabulous guests today, and I do mean fabulous. Billie, firstly, how you doing?
Yeah, good man. Good man. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you on your first time on the show. So, thank you
Yeah,
very
man.
much for
Yeah,
coming
no
on.
worries.
It's great,
Anytime,
great to
man.
have you.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure.
No worries at all. Haz, fair to say we're on the show now. I mean, we do far too many shows
Yeah,
together, let's face it. How you doing?
yeah, I'm good. You? I'll
Yeah,
have
very
a
good,
result the
thank you.
weekend, so yeah.
Yeah, we're going to get into that, don't worry at all. Alice, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Obviously, United fan for people who don't know. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Not happy with Man United at the moment, but other than that, I'm doing good.
Oh, no worries at all. We've all been there. Don't worry. We'll definitely get into it. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to smash that subscribe button because it's free to do so. It ultimately helps the channel and the show grow. Obviously, check out all these guys on socials. We've asked whether we can find them at the end of today's show. If you are listening, though, on any other podcast platform, don't forget to give us a follow and 5-star review. That'd be massively appreciated. But let's crack straight into it. And Billie, I'm going to come to you because I want to know, thinking back before the game, I want to know your thoughts on the lineup because Van der Ven and Romero are back in that starting lineup. There's a debut for Werner, Drogson's on the bench, Kulusevski misses out for injury. It's quite a lot of news in there. So what did you make of it overall?
Obviously delighted with the defence because that's the first time that back four have played together for, I think, since the Chelsea game, which back in November or whenever that was. And I was worried about the midfield, to be honest, man. I thought Højbjerg Skip starting against Man United is going to be a bit of a long day, but yeah, didn't turn out that way. But yeah, I was worried about the midfield, but buzzing with the defence, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you speak for a lot of fans when you say that they're worried about the midfield. Someone who I'm pretty sure is worried about the midfield was Haz. So, Haz, what were your thoughts
Yeah.
when you saw the line at the midfield? Were you panicking?
All right. I mean, the back line, I don't know if I was surprised that Dragosin wasn't involved or I was kind of 50-50 about it because I thought he might chuck him straight in. But if Romero was fit enough to play, then I guess he was going to go with the trusted back line. I was going to talk about the attacking trio. I think that kind of picked itself because Werner came in. So I think he was always going to start on the left because I don't think he would start him in the middle, especially with Richardson's form. As for the midfield, because I'll save the best till last, we were kind of down to just 3 players. And those 3 players had to play. So, I mean, we had to kind of make do. Which is probably part of the issue with Højbjerg, I think we have at the moment, because he probably wants to leave, but with the lack of numbers in there, we can't really get rid of him yet. So he kind of had to play, and Skip, much to one of my friends I watched the game with, despair, had to watch him play for 90 minutes. So one of my friends really doesn't rate Skip at all. So yeah, Bensko kind of carried the midfield in the end, I thought, but I think we'll talk about that later on, so I'll say that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we will definitely talk about that later, so do save it for later. Thank you very much. And Alice, so different question for you, obviously. So for the United lineup, Eriksen back in that starting 11 against his former club. We saw Casemiro, Martinez back on the bench after injury. What were your thoughts when you saw that team news and that general matchday score? Did it give you a boost before the game to see those players back?
Yeah, I think for me, like the lineup, I think that Ten Hag to an extent got it right because I don't think you can throw Martinez and Casemiro in the deep end when they'd been out for so long and they were injured. We rushed them back, they got injured again, and they've been out since September and October. So I was like, well, I don't want them to start in this game and risk them. And obviously Luke Shaw was missing, Mason Mount, Maguire, Amrabat's at AFCON, all of those were missing. And I was like, well, we've got our best front 3. That is our only fit defenders unless we threw an 18-year-old in there or Martinez under the bus. And I thought midfield, it was going to be Eriksen or McTominay with Maino and Bruno. And Eriksen gives you a bit more composure on the ball. I think he did struggle a little bit out of possession covering the ground, but I thought that was probably the best lineup we could pick with those available.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, but you will get players back, hopefully, as we get towards the end of the month. Luke Shaw and Mason Mount, I believe, aren't that far away either. So there you go, getting players back now, a bit like us. So first goal of the game comes in the 3rd minute. Wow, what a start through Rasmus Højlund, his 2nd goal in the Premier League. So coming to you, Haz, worst possible start? And was it a good goal where Man United had a quick start? Or was it a case of, I don't know, we hadn't woken up, poor defending? Talk me through the first goal.
So what I've learnt with this team, as in the Spurs team, is that we kind of take sometimes time to grow into these sorts of bigger games. Like because they're a young team, I feel like they grow into the game, which kind of reflected on the scoreline in the end. But the early goal didn't actually surprise me because I kind of expected United to turn up, even though they've been rubbish for a lot of the season. No offense, but like it kind of was expected, especially Højlund, who hasn't scored for I think a very long time, and I think you'll go on to the next scorer later on, so we'll talk about him in a bit. But it kind of didn't surprise me because I expected them to turn up. I was just more happy with our response, but at the same time, when it happened, I wasn't like as worried as before because obviously we went to Arsenal early in the season, we went behind, and we came back twice, so I wasn't as worried as normal, I guess, and I kind of had more confidence against someone like United versus against someone like Arsenal. So yeah, I was kind of worried, but I was kind of expecting it, so I don't know.
Okay, fair enough.
I was kind of expecting United to score, so.
Yeah, it was a quick start for United. I think it was Højlund's second goal in the league. I think his first one was against Aston Villa. I'm pretty sure it was the winner against Villa. So it's still been fairly recently. Alice, in terms of a United point of view, was that the perfect start? You know, the kind of start that you thought about beforehand that you wanted to see, and was it good to see Højlund score again, second goal?
Yeah, 100%. I think we have to score the first goal because we've seen it a lot where United started games well for 15 minutes and then we've gone 1-0 down and then we've just been absolutely atrocious. But if we go 2-0 down like Villa and Nottingham Forest, we end up winning 3-2. But if we go 1-0 down, we end up just being rubbish. It's this weird thing. 2-0 wakes us up, 1-0 makes us rubbish. And I thought, well, Spurs have got their best back five, you know, Vicario, the fullbacks, the centre-back. Spurs have got their solid back four and Vicario. They are solid. I was like, if they go 1-0 up, we will have to break them down a bit more. Obviously, Spurs don't really sit back or anything. They play attacking football under Ange, but I thought defensively they were solid today. I thought we could get them in midfield, but ultimately Spurs ended up being better in midfield than us today. I thought Skip and Højbjerg playing. I thought, I've got a chance here. And I think the early goal was important, particularly with United and how our heads drop after conceding a lot this season. And I think confidence has been an issue as well. Very young attack. Højlund's 20, Garnacho's 19 as well. I think confidence is a big thing. So I think to get that goal was the best start. And I think for the first 10 minutes was the best football we played in the match.
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely the best I've seen United play this season. Really, really quick start. Billie, different question for you. So, because obviously our equaliser came in the 19th minute through Richarlison, assist from Porro from the corner. So was that, the response, Billie, that you wanted to see? And was it a good delivery by Porro, well taken goal by Richarlison, poor defending, or a mix of all three of those?
I think maybe a mix of all three. I think it wasn't the response I was expecting, to be honest, because I feel like sometimes when we go to Old Trafford in particular, we get a bit scared by the crowd. We don't have a pretty terrible record up there. So I thought, when Man United getting an early goal, they're going to blitz us. But unless they started that way as well. Then after about 5-10 minutes, we started to grow back into the game, and then we started putting our attacking football together and sort of wave after attack. And there's a really, really decent delivery by Porro. And I don't know if you saw after the game as well, like Ange mentioned that Ryan Mason's the one who's actually been working on the set pieces. And I think we've actually scored more set piece goals than any other team in the league. So yeah, it's big. Was well impressed with that goal, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Haz, so moving on to that equaliser, 19th minute. Richarlison. We don't want to talk too much about him because we will get onto it later. I want to focus on the goal itself. Was it a well taken goal, or do you think, from a United point of view, they shouldn't have allowed Richarlison that kind of room? What do you reckon?
Well, I thought he did well to get through that bodies to actually get a touch on it, to be honest. I think Porro's delivery was a bit mixed the whole game. So sometimes it was good, sometimes it was bad. Sometimes we were playing it short. Sometimes we were trying to do something different when I felt like we could just chuck it in every time, especially after the goal. I think his delivery was reminiscent of kind of Porro's crossing, because Porro is probably the best crosser on this side by like a mile. As for Richarlison, I just think you just give him the right supply and he'll score. That's how I see it. So high balls and he gets them most of the time. So but as for on a United point of view, I don't know if you heard the commentary. I don't know if you're watching Sky or something else. I don't know, but they did mention that United have conceded something like a lot of set pieces. So we kind of attack their weakness. I'm sure Alice will touch on that later. But so but I kind of felt like we were going to score anyway. So it was just inevitable.
Okay, fair enough. Inevitable. There you go. Good word. Fair enough. Alice, moving on to you next. So you got your second goal in the 40th minute through Rashford. looking at it from a United point of view, was it kind of good play from Rashford for you? Was it poor defending by Porro because Rashford had a lot of space? And also, were you surprised to see Rashford find the back of the net? Because it's something he's struggled to do. It's his first goal, isn't it, at Old Trafford this season? So talk me through the goal.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately with Rashford, he's not been in form this season, but he got over 30 goals last season. And as bad as he is this season, if a player can get 30 goals in a season, they've got that quality in them. Yeah. And I think the difference sort of between Man United and Tottenham, and I think the reason we drew the game, because I think Tottenham were a better team, is we had our attackers that actually do have that sort of quality in them. In terms of Rashford on his day, he can be good. And I think with Rashford, he's been very poor lately, but if you give him one good chance, he can put that away. And I think it was some decent play by United with Højlund sort of flicking it back and stuff. And ultimately, I thought, Rashford, if we can give him a good chance, he likes to score against Spurs. I think he could score. I think, maybe Spurs could have defended that better and all of it. But I think for the most part, it was actually, I think, quite good by our attack. And then, but that they didn't really do anything after that.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Thank you. Billie, so for United's second goal that came in the 40th minute, was it poor defending by Porro for you, or just as Alice says, Rashford gets those chances, and sometimes he takes him, really, really clinical player. When he's given that chance, he'll take it. So good by Rashford or poor by Porro, or both again?
Yeah, I think a bit of both again. I think Porro could have done probably better for both goals actually. But then we know what Pedro Porro brings in attacking sense. He's got enough credit in the bank to be worried and concerned about that. I think he's improved a lot defensively, but I do think Rashford gave him a pretty torrid time at sometimes in that first half. And then I think he probably did a better job in the second half of keeping him quiet, and so did Udogie Garnacho as well. But I think the Man United front three, especially for us, because we play a high line, they're going to cause anyone problems, man. They're three really dangerous players, really fast players. And I think any team that comes up against that front three, people say what they want about United at the moment, but that front three can damage anyone, I think. And we saw that twice against us. So I just think that it's kind of like the perfect front three to play against our front line. And I think we did a lot better job in the second half of keeping it quiet.
Absolutely. I think you look at United's front three and you go, for me, you look at it and go, if they're up and firing on form, then that is one of the dangerous, if not the most dangerous front three in the league. You've got Garnacho. I can't speak enough of him highly. I think he's excellent for 19. Just to say everything for me, and scoring that goal, Goodison Park, that overhead kick for me just represents a player with confidence and a bright future ahead of him. Højlund, I think, needs time, will grow into it. He's proven now 2 goals in the Premier League, both really, really well taken, and that's a player that showed confidence for both those goals. And Rashford, 30 goals last season speaks for itself, and we know what he's capable of. It's just whether he can pick that up this season, can do it consistently. So that United front three, when it's on it, for me is 100% dangerous.
Yeah, we know that they're at their best when they're going in behind and got the space in behind, and we leave a lot of space as well. So it's a bit of a nightmare mix for us, but did all right. A couple of scary moments, especially in the first half, but did all right in the second half.
Yeah, definitely. And then you had that chance at the end to McTominay. I was a bit worried then. I had a feeling that hit the back of the net. Maybe a wrong player, wrong position. Who knows? But Haz. So half time, 2-1 down. Did the scoreline reflect the first half for you? Were we unlucky to go in behind? What do you reckon?
So I think one of the weaknesses of this team is that we have a lot of possession, but a lot of times we don't seem to do much with it. And I know that there's commentators on Sky were saying we were the better side. Now, I kind of 50-50 about that, because we did have most of the ball, but I felt United were way more dangerous on the break. Obviously with the second goal where Rashford did a 1-2 and just banged it into the corner. But I felt like that was part of our own doing, because for me, Romero in that instance, I know he hadn't hit that out, but I don't know what he was thinking in terms of his putting his hand behind his back. I don't know if you saw the analysis bit afterwards. We were talking about that.
Yeah. And
I thought his body shape was really wrong. In Porro's, you can kind of sort of blame him, kind of sort of not, because with Porro on that side, you have to forget that he's playing with Johnson. So Porro is kind of playing 2 positions sometimes, because Johnson doesn't really come back as much as, say, someone like Werner, I've noticed, or Charleston when he's played on that side. So he's got a lot to do, especially with Rashford as well. You add Rashford into the mix, this is a bit too much to cope with. So I kind of felt they used an overload on that side, which resulted in the goal. But going to the second half, I kind of expected the response anyway, because I thought we were going to score. I mean, I did predict 2-2 on the Friday night show, so I kind of felt validated in the end. Yeah. If you go back and watch it, I said 2-2.
I'll go back and watch it. I believe you though.
And I kind of felt that we were going to score it again anyway. Like we have goals in us, right? So, and like I said, relating back to the Arsenal game earlier in the season, I kind of felt like we were always going to come back. So whether we're going to win the game or not was a bit, in the end, 50-50, but I thought we were
you were still confident at half time.
Confident we're going to get something, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. That's good because for me, I wasn't that confident. I knew that we'd have a chance coming back in the game. I was impressed generally how we played with the players we had available in that first half. But I was thinking, Old Trafford, it's a tough place to go when you go behind. Alex talked about the importance of getting the first goal. That's why I was delighted when we got the equaliser. Then to go behind again, I was like, right, a lot of this is a test of mentality. And being honest with you, I was sure that we can come back, but at the moment in time, I was like, this could be 3-2 either way. I knew there's going to be more goals in it, but I was like, and I think that proved in the second half. It could have gone either way. We had chances. I think Werner was good, but if he'd taken one of his chances, a little bit more clinical there. United had chances from McTominay, for me, the biggest one at the end. So could have gone. Yeah, could have gone either way. But Billie, 2-1 down at half time. Did the scoreline reflect for you the first half, and how were you kind of feeling? Were you like Haz at halftime, still feeling confident that we can get something, maybe even 3 points at halftime?
Yeah, I do think the scoreline was a fair reflection. I thought Man United definitely had the better chances, particularly in the opening of the game. But then we did grow back into it, so I wasn't like. I did think we would have some good spells in the second half. I didn't expect it to go as well as it did right from the off, but I thought definitely Man United had the better of the first half for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And Alice, for you, so obviously you 2-1 up at half time. Were you impressed with that United first half performance? And do you think you deserved that lead going into the break?
It was a bit of a iffy one because I think you hit the bar or something, didn't you? And I think every time Tottenham had a set piece, I thought that they were going to score. And I think when you looked at like the XG and the statistics, I think I would have said, well, actually 2-2 would probably be a fair reflection at half time. I wasn't unhappy with the first half, but I said if we play like this in the second half, Tottenham will get back into it. They'll score. And they did that within like 30 seconds of the second half. And then we just struggled and just didn't really do anything in the second half. So I was happy that we got 2 goals. And I think it was all right in the first half. But I did think that Tottenham grew into that game for it. And I think they were 2-2 would have probably been a fairer halftime score. So I felt like you were going to get back into it.
Okay, fair enough. I appreciate the honesty. Moving on to the second half, because this kind of moves me on perfectly. 2-2. Bentancur, 46th minute. And to give you an example of how quick it was, Ten Hag hadn't sat down. Someone had to explain to him when he came out the tunnel that we'd actually scored. He looked absolutely baffled, and he was like, hey, already? I don't think he even knew the match was underway. So from a Spurs point of view, Billie, perfect start to the half. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely perfect half. And I think it says a lot about the mentality as well. That they obviously would have got a big team talk from Ange. He would have laid into him probably and given him a bit of belief. And then to come out like that was brilliant. And actually a really well taken goal, I think, as well. Good play from Werner, good play from Skip, and a brilliant finish from Bentancur, because we saw last season he can chip in with the goals as well. And I'm sure we'll come on to it a bit later on. But I thought he was the best player on the pitch today, for sure, yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. We will talk about Bentancur. I think he absolutely bossed that midfield for me. Haz, perfect start to the half. Would you agree? Talk me through that goal for you, and also Ange's passion when the ball hit the back of the net, because that's something we haven't seen a lot this season. So talk to me a bit behind that as well.
It felt, I know it sounds a bit off the cuff, but it felt more like a training ground move. Sort of with just the inside part, like the sort of pass it was very like diagonal, and then the layoff, and it felt very like, do you guys see them train before the games? Like, they do the little triangles and they shoot and stuff.
Home matches when I'm there,
so it felt like something like that. Except obviously it was Bentancur at the end of it this time instead of like Richarlison or Son or wherever. But I kind of thought he was gonna rile them up, like Billie said, and tell them come out there and just basically make your impression on the game. Because I felt like if we didn't score early, the game might have went away from us. So I thought that goal was actually quite important. But afterwards, we went for like a 15-20 minute spell where I thought, we can actually win this game. But we just didn't really just assert the dominance that we could. I felt like we could do. I don't know. I just felt like we could have won the game, but I know it could have gone either way in the end. But I just felt like after the goal, we should have just pushed just a bit more, just certain more dominance, and just won the game. But anyway.
Yeah, I respect that, but at the same time, you push too much and you leave gaps, and like we nearly saw at the end, it could all of a sudden 1 point turns to 0, and when you come back from twice, and for me, you have 5 or 6 regular starters missing them, maybe there's a little bit that I just can kind of go back and say, look, that's the reason.
I know you spoke about Old Trafford, but for me, it's not like we're going to Old Trafford 10 years ago when it's Ferguson. I feel like you saw Bournemouth on 3-0 at Old Trafford early in the season. Like it's a winnable place. I know our record there overall is not very good, but I feel like we could have won. Like, I just feel gutted in some ways we could have won the game.
I absolutely get that, Haz. But the way I'm kind of trying to look at it is we went to Old Trafford last season, we went behind, we lost the game. This year, we go behind twice, we get a point out the game. We're all sitting here going, we're disappointed with a point. Last season, we'd be jumping up and down for a point because it just wasn't possible. So that for me shows how far we've come in a year. If you think about that change in mentality, which is all behind Mr.
I think it's more to do with like I mentioned the Arsenal game. It's just the players don't seem to give up. And I only saw Andrew's comments after the game. He spoke about how a lot of the players who were a month ahead or a few weeks ahead that playing that they shouldn't be playing or something like they're a few weeks ahead than they should be or something. Like Bentancur, he mentioned. I think Romero, they came to him and said they want to play.
It was very early, yeah.
Yeah, so like these players, they want to play. And I know you've spoken before about how the players who are injured see the players that are training and they want to get involved. Like it feels like they just don't want to give up and they want to actually play for the team.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Alice, from a United point of view and Ten Hag's point of view, was that the worst possible start for United?
I think when you look at the game and you look at the performance against Spurs, I think first half was okay, but I think second half was just all Tottenham. Like, other than the McTominay chance right at the end, which I think is with United, I think it was almost like we just sat back and thought, well, we've got our front three, they're quick, we can get them behind, maybe we can create one moment of magic through Bruno or Rashford. I do think it wasn't the best game from United when you think that Spurs were missing Son, Kulu, Saab, Basuma, Maddison, and that was their midfield three when they went on that 10-game unbeaten run as well, when they were missing 5 key players. And we were obviously missing a few key players, but Martin has ended up coming back in and stuff. But I think had Spurs had their best front three fit and Son, I think Spurs probably would have won the game or done enough to win the game. And I think from a United perspective, when Ange's been there 7 months and Ten Hag's been there 20 months and they've both got injuries, but you could kind of see what Tottenham were trying to do and they were still keeping the identity. But with United, I was just like, what are we doing? I think that was the more worrying thing. Like, the result, I'll take 2-2, 100%. I'll take the point. But I think performance-wise, there was definitely a lot more positives from Tottenham's perspective, especially in terms of style and identity.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Now I want to move on to player of the match because later on in the show, we will discuss individuals, your Richarlisons, your Johnsons, etc., and players coming back from injury. But I'm going to go around and ask you one by one in no particular order your player of the match and why, and talk to me like reasoning behind that. So Billie, I want to come to you first. You mentioned Bentancur, so I'm assuming he's going to be your player of the match. If he is, why have you chosen Bentancur?
I got a bit of a dead heat between 2 players.
Okay,
I'm going to go Bentancur because I thought he absolutely bossed the midfield, but I also thought it was Richarlison's best game for us as well. I thought he was getting involved in a lot of the play. He had some really dangerous moments, obviously scored as well. I think Bentancur was better overall, but I do want to shout out Richarlison as well. I think he had probably his best overall game for us.
Yeah, he was immense, and we will get on to his individual performances because I think people are quick to talk about a player. Richarlison, I think, is a perfect example when they're not doing well, but when they're doing well, not a lot of people. And you listen, a lot of people have held their hands up. A lot of people don't want to jump to conclusions and never, can admit he's doing well. But there's still some people who won't like to admit that he's doing well. So I will deliberately bring it up because I think he's doing really well recently, just to be awkward. But Haz, who's your player of the match and why?
You kind of said it already, but it was Richarlison, 100% for me.
It's like I knew, isn't it? I'm a good mind reader.
It's actually nothing to do with our like campaigning for Richarlison basically since day one of the season. But for me, it wasn't just his goal, the way he took his goal. It's just his all-round play was just unbelievable. I thought his There was an instance I remember he lost the ball and he ran all the way back, got it straight back almost, and then his hold up play was incredible. I thought he literally, I didn't see a wrong layoff. Like it was just like Billie said, his best game for Tottenham, 100%. And I just think like we're finally seeing the best of him, and it's kind of reflected in terms of like they're actually giving him supply. Like with the corner, that's something that he thrives off, like a high ball, like I mentioned earlier. And for me, I know Bentancur was brilliant, but it was for me, I had to give it to Richarlison. I just thought he was brilliant. It was amazing.
Okay, thank you very much. Alice, who's your player of the match? I'm interested about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the standouts for me were obviously Bentancur and Richarlison, because I did notice that Richarlison was getting involved quite a lot in deeper areas. He defensively was quite good, I thought. Hold-up play was good. He sort of put in a proper number 9 shift. I thought the fact that Bentancur had Skip and Højbjerg, who personally I don't rate that highly, and I know a lot of Spurs fans don't, I was like, oh, you know what, Man United could do something here, but Bentancur took control of the midfield. So I think they were probably, as you guys said, the two best. I think Romero had quite a good game as well, actually. I think he was good. Yeah. And I think Porro, I know he struggled a little bit with Rashford in the first half, but every time Porro got the ball, he was just lethal. He was causing a lot of problems. So those were the 4 standout for me. But I think in terms of everything, you'd have to be Bentancur or Richie, just because Richie controlled the midfield. Richie put in an absolute shift in attack, got the goal, got them back into the game. But Bentancur also scored and controlled the midfield. Maybe because I think Richarlison gets a bit more stick, and everyone kind of talks about Bentancur and how good he is by Richarlison's standard. Maybe he sort of pips it for man of the match, because it's a difficult game for him as well. Varane's a solid centre back.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you had to choose a United player, Alice, who would it be? Who impressed you most? For me, the obvious ones are your Rashfords, your Højlunds. Garnacho, I really like. I think he's quite quiet in the game, but I think that's mainly down to how well Udogie coped with him. So who would you choose for United if you had to choose?
I'd probably go with Højlund. I think he was he scored the goal, he got the assist. Doesn't get lots of the ball service, but he even put a few good balls in behind at times and a few good passes. I thought Delo had a decent game for United as well, for the most part. And Martinez was good when he came on, but I think Højlund was probably the one that would get the highest rating for me. Yeah,
absolutely. I actually thought Wan-Bissaka done impressive. Yeah, was really impressive on the left, because I didn't expect him actually to start there. So I thought he done really well, and we will get on to Johnson, but he did keep him quiet. And I personally think, though, that's mainly down to how well Wan-Bissaka done. And you talk about one-on-one defending. Is for me, Wan-Bissaka wins that every day of the week. And whatever you think of him, one-on-one defending, one of the main reasons he was signed for United from Palace is one of the things he was looked at Palace. It was so strong at was his one-on-one defending. Even when he looked, he was beat, he got back. For me, he stood out. He's one of them. So, Billie, I want to come to you next, because there's a player missed out a bit unexpectedly, I think it's fair to say, through illness. So, and that is Dejan Kulusevski. So did we miss him in that game? A little bit creative spot. Obviously, we know we missed Maddison. There's no point in asking that question. He's been out for a long while. We've dealt with this. But Kulusevski obviously was as a late blow. So did we really miss him and his creativity? Because for me, anyway, he's so good in that number 10 role. He opens up and really can control that midfield. So what do you reckon?
Yeah, I definitely think we did, man. I think second half, we didn't miss him in terms of like we controlled most of the second half and we were creating chances, but I just felt we needed that little tiny bit of magic, that little bit of quality that he has, that maybe Højbjerg and Skip, who I didn't think had a bad game by any means compared to some of the performances we've seen lately from them. They just don't have it. They don't quite have that little creative spark, or Kulusevski chips in with goals as well. So I do think we really missed him, actually. And I think had he been playing, or had Son been playing, we probably would have won that game. So it's a real blow for us, I think, for him not being there.
Yeah, absolutely. Haz, did we miss Kulusevski, or did we miss anyone in particular more for you? For me, it's Kulusevski, just in terms of, I think Kulusevski would have been able to play that pass, etc. But some people will say Son, because for me, we played really well, but it was just that final pass, that final shot. I thought Werner looked really good, but it was just like, we know shooting's not his best ability. So I'm going, why are you shooting? From you're 30 yards out, you're never going to score. Pass the ball, because he looked good as well, and that bit let him down to his game. So who do we really miss if you could choose one player that's out at the moment?
I don't know. We should took away Maddison, probably Kulusevski then, because we probably missed.
You can choose Maddison, but I've just been saying since the Chelsea game, I've been asking every single show.
You can even ask him Lo Celso, because Lo Celso was been brilliant since he's come back in the team. So, and just anyone with any sort of creativity would have, I think, made a difference for us. In the Son case, it's more just because Johnson was so wasteful again that if we had Son playing, maybe it would have been a bit different. But then, would Werner played on the right? I don't know. Would Son play on the right? I don't know, because they both tend to play on the left anyway. So it's just going to be a bit of a headache, I guess, when Son comes back. When we can put more. Yeah, but it's just, I think, you talk about Johnson later, because I have a lot to say about that. So I'll leave that to you.
Oh, do you? Oh, well, I haven't seen any of your comments on it. Do you know, there's one thing we haven't spoken about. We speak about a lot of things, Kulusevski, Richarlison. I know your thoughts on pretty much everyone, but Brennan Johnson. I can get a general gist, but we'll save that for later. I'm interested now. Alice, in terms of United point of view, because let's not forget they had lots of injury problems as well. Yes, players returning, but you look at someone like Casemiro, would have been the perfect type of game for him. Big game, Old Trafford, under lights, but he just wasn't quite ready to get on the pitch. So out of anyone in that team, because for me, it'd probably be United point of view, Casemiro or Martinez, who would it be for you?
Yeah, I think 100% Casemiro or Martinez. I think Eriksen really struggled in that game, and I think something with Eriksen this season is in possession he's very good, and he was very good versus Villa because he against the high line he was pinging balls over, and he's been good in a lot of the smaller games this season against when we're going to dominate possession as well. But I think with Spurs being quite a high intensity team and your intensity levels being higher, Eriksen really struggled out of possession. And while Casemiro is a little bit older and he's not known for covering those at ground, I think Casemiro would have given us a bit more balance out of possession, because I think Spurs took control of the game. And I think had maybe it been Casemiro and Maino, and we pushed Maino further up, who's quite good at keeping the ball, I think we might have been a little bit better off with that. So I think Casemiro is probably the biggest miss, because I think the midfield lacked a little bit of balance.
Yeah, I think Casemiro coming back will be a big one for you, because you look at his form last season, it was really good. Obviously, he hasn't hit the same level this season, but doesn't mean he can't when he's fully fit and match fit. Next, I want to focus on individuals, and the first individual I want to talk about is Richarlison. So, Billie, coming to you first. For you, is it fair to say that was his best performance in the Spurs shirt, and what really stood out to you? For me, the all-round shift was really good. His defensive work, getting back, as Alice says, really stood out to me once again. So, what do you think of his performance?
Yeah, listen, man, everyone's picking up Richarlison, but I want to pick up his surgeon, because since that surgery, this guy's been a completely different player, man. This surgeon is our player of the season, let alone Richarlison. I think he's got 7-7 now, something like that. And
something like that, 6-6.
Yeah,
so it might be 7-7,
yeah, something like that. Anyway, and he's just a completely different player. I don't think it's just the goals. I think he's like, as you say, his mobility is a lot better. He's getting up and down the pitch. Haz made a good point earlier. I think there was a corner for Man United where he was one who headed it away. He's got aerial presence, which we do not have in our team. Our team are not strong in the air at all, by Richarlison and now Drogoshin. So yeah, I just think he's a completely different player. I definitely think it's his best game as a Tottenham since he's been at Tottenham as well. But I thought his all-round hold-up play was excellent.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. I completely agree with you, Billie. Haz, coming to you, Richarlison, how many months have we spent talking about him, saying give him time? And honestly, I couldn't care less that we've kind of, at this moment in time, been proved right. It's just the fact that people are off Richarlison's back, getting behind him. Because at the end of the day, whether you like a player or not, and we will get on to Johnson, because for me, he comes under this bracket, as far as I'm concerned, when he wears the shirt, you've got to get behind him. He's one of us. He's in the team. He's been picked for a reason. Get behind the player. You can have your thoughts on him, but to question like Richarlison, I've seen people question why he's made it as a professional football. Honestly, some of the things that people come out with, I'm just glad to see. I think it's something like 6-6. So talk to me about his performance, because it has to be mentioned.
I mean, for me, it's no surprise it's Brazil's number 9. So, and I think with Richarlison, we're always going to, obviously, because Conte didn't like him, let's be honest, and he didn't want him. He was a Levy sign, let's be like straight up with that. So he was chucked down the right most of last season, kind of put out to dry, I guess. And I think it's a testament to Ange that he's put faith in him. And I feel like now he's kind of not restoring his faith, just showing.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's the right phrase. Basically, that Ange has faith in him, and he's finally showing him why. So I think you need to give a lot of credit to Ange as well, because a lot of people would have thought Richarlison's come back for injury. Why are we playing through the middle, especially because Son was scoring as well, and he put Son on left. So I think he is our best option up front because of his height as well, which Son doesn't give us. And I think he's just every game just getting better and better. And I think the United game was just another one.
Yeah, and I kind of got to the point, I don't know about you, Haz, but I kind of accepted that Richarlison's a player who lives off confidence. I think that's okay. But I think that can be used in a good way. He has a bad game, he's frustrated. Use that in the next game to go and improve your performance. Go and score, maybe score, another. I think that can be used in a kind of good way. I think I agree with you, your phrase you used. I think he is restoring that because Ange just put a lot of faith in him. He's obviously backed him, and I think rightly so. But could have very easily got rid of him. If we listen to the fans, then I don't think
don't forget there
Richarlison
was
would
talk
be.
of him going to Saudi this month.
Yeah,
and he easily could have gone. I mean, it's possible.
But again, you look at players like Richarlison and Werner's another one. Johnson, who, again, I will keep saying it, we will get on to Johnson, don't worry. They can play anywhere across that front three. So if you're Daniel Levy, you think of his point of view. It makes sense. It kind of covers a couple of positions for you. Yeah, it's a lot of money. But you get injuries, they can fill in. And you look at Richarlison.
I actually don't think, for me, the Richarlison money, I actually don't think it's as high as everyone made it out to be. Because I remember saying on another channel when we signed him, because people were debating whether Richarlison was our marquee signing that summer. I don't know if people remember this. It was a long time ago now. And I said he wasn't a marquee signing because 60 million nowadays buys you a forward. It's not. I'm not saying, or is Richarlison not an elite striker? He's not going to cost like 80, 90 million.
But what I don't like is people use that price tag against the players. Not Richarlison's
what I'm saying
it's worth that much.
It shouldn't, because that's just the going rate for a forward now, 50, 60 million. We're not in 2002 or 2010 where we're talking 30 million for a forward in 2010-ish times.
No, I agree.
Now it's 50, 60. Back in the 2000s, we're talking like maybe 15, 20 or something. I don't know, something like that. What I'm saying is inflation. So, like, for me, with the 60 million, I don't like that use of, that's this price tag, so you should be doing, X amount, because it's just the going rate for a forward. I'd understand it if we signed for 100 million, maybe, or something like that, 80, 90 million to 100 million. But it's 60 million for me. It's not like a huge amount in today's day and age. So.
But wasn't it like 50 million with add-ons?
Yeah, whatever it was.
Not being funny, but if it was based off last season, then he probably didn't achieve those add-ons. So there we go.
But last season, I told you, he was kind of shunned away. Conte kind of shunned him away. So
he did, and it kind of abandoned. And whether that's the right thing to do or not, Conte got a lot wrong. Let's be clear. He had Sarr in his hands, right? He couldn't get the team. Basuma. Some of the things he'd done with top players makes you question him as a manager. But that's completely another subject for another day. But Alice, to bring you in on this, to Richarlison, because obviously I want to get your kind of point of view as a neutral. So what do you make firstly of his performance in that game? And do you still think he's the right man to be Tottenham striker for the long term?
I mean, I think filling Harry Kane's boots is almost impossible for anyone. Like, Harry Kane is arguably, you could say, the best striker. And I think he's the best striker in the world right now. And he's definitely top 3 all-timers. So I think to fill Harry Kane's boots, I don't think anyone's going to be able to do that for Spurs, particularly right away. I think Richarlison, I don't think he's always the most clinical, but I think today he showed he can do things like all-round striker game, hold up, defensively put in the shift. I think he's growing and improving under Ange. If you compare him to how he was last season, he's improving. And I think he might be someone that can do the job for you, but you'll look to move on when you want to hit that next level. So I sort of see Spurs. I mean, technically you are kind of still in the title race, but I think Man City or Liverpool will be like the top 2. And I think Spurs are sort of in that European challenge now. Can they get top 4? I think they definitely can. And then I think next season, when you go into the window, that's when you sort of look at bringing in, I think, a striker. And having Richarlison there as a second option, I think, is good, because I think if you look at the best teams, they have very good depth. And I think if you've got a number 9, and then if something happens to that number 9, Richarlison comes on, that's better than having a number 9, something happens to Richarlison and Solomon coming on, who I've not seen much of. But I think that there's definitely a player in Richarlison. He's a decent level player. He can do a job. He's showing improvement. But I think that might be an area to look at. Definitely bringing in another attacker for Spurs next season, because I don't think you've properly replaced Kane.
No, absolutely fair enough. Big up to Foul Throw Podcast in the YouTube chat, listening live on YouTube. Says his mentality, talk about Richarlison, is excellent as well. Always comes good. We're doubted, and absolutely. And I just think you have to be patient, this kind of players. And as Alice said, I completely forgot, so thank you for bringing that up. I don't think the comparisons to Harry Kane are fair. Harry Kane's moved on. I think some fans like to live in the past and kind of cling on to Kane and go, you got to kind of replace him. Yes, you need a striker, but are you ever going to replace Harry Kane? No, very, very rare. Because like, if we go inside Haaland, for me, that's still not in terms of, you talk about replacement for Kane. For me, Haaland can't do what Kane can do in terms of creativity. Kane's a completely different player. You can't compare the two. You know, they're completely different players. That just isn't fair either. So I completely agree with you on that. Timo Werner, debut. Billie, talk to me. Good debut from him, and what can he improve on going forward?
You know what? I think considering he only had 2 training sessions with the team, I thought it was pretty good. I definitely think you can see why he's been signed, because he just fits into that front three perfectly. Like we're all about revenge, playing in behind, getting in the space, getting the cut back into the number 9, scoring goals that way. And he's a sort of perfectly made for that. I think he will be disappointed with his finishing was pretty poor. But I think certainly considering the way that he's only literally just joined us, and I don't think anyone was really expecting him to start 2-3 days after he joined. It was a pretty decent debut. But what I was really impressed with is the fact that, as someone just pointed out in the chat, actually, is that and is obviously such a good player improver coach. He gets the best out of these players. And you when you think about the raw attributes that Timo Werner has got, I think it's a lot for Ange to work with there for sure.
And I honestly sitting here right now, I don't know about you, Billie, but I believe that he can work on it. I'm not saying that Werner's going to be this goal machine that's going to score 20, 25 goals that we see the likes of Haaland could do or that Harry Kane to do. But I think he can improve his finishing, get him in the right positions in front of goal, and just be calmer and more clinical in front of goal. I completely agree with you. I can see why he's signed. But Haz, what did you make of his debut?
So first of all, I want to say, I know you just said you can't see him scoring 20, 25 goals, but we're still talking about a player who scored at Leipzig 20 goals a season for a while. So,
okay.
Like, I'm not saying I'm expecting to do it now. How many goals is Werner
going to score?
I'm not expecting him to score 20 goals in this season. Okay, we've only got 19 games. But what I'm trying to say is, like, Werner still has that ability. So, for me, I don't know if you saw Ange's comments about signing him. He mentioned something like we didn't expect an opportunity like this to come along at this point or something in the club's.
No, I didn't say that, actually.
Vision or something like that. Something along those lines. We kind of implied that we're kind of punching above our weight getting him in some ways because this was a bit early in the revolution or whatever you want to call it. But for me, Werner, like, there's so much there. Like, he's got the pace. Like I said, he is capable of actually scoring loads of goals. But what I liked most about his debut was that he was actually taking shots. Like, I know he came out today and said something like, "Oh, I'm going to be more assist-wise," but that's probably because he's been playing on the left. But I don't know if I'll say this from now. I think he's playing on the left for a reason. Number one, also, he's played there a lot before, especially at Chelsea.
It's mainly because Son's not here, though, right?
Yeah, I think there's another reason as well. If you remember Richarlison, right, he came in and he started playing him on the left, and he kind of pushed him into the middle. So if Werner starts scoring, we could even see Werner playing in the middle. So it all depends on him. If he can start scoring, like if he starts getting a goal a game, he might move him. Like, you just don't know.
With a fully fit team, I see personally myself, Werner is that kind of impact player who comes in. But who knows? We'll have to see.
Harry,
it's a good signing.
I spoke to TJ on the Friday show about how there's lack of strikers that can get 20 goals a season nowadays. Like, there's no like Torres, Drogba, all these sorts of players aren't really around anymore. Like, you might, obviously there's Kane and Haaland. Yeah. But it'd be hard to really name a top striker in Europe, maybe even that. I'm talking somebody that can come in and guarantee you 20 goals, right? 100%. Because even you sign someone like Osimhen from Napoli, he's coming from Serie A, you don't know how he's going to acclimatise to the league. Yeah? So, like, there's no guarantees. But with Werner, we're kind of taking a very low-risk gamble on a player that is capable of actually scoring 20 to 25 goals a season. That's what I'm saying. So if he starts scoring, just don't be surprised if they move him into the middle at some point. I'm not saying now, but like, there's so much potential there. Like, it was one of the signs I saw I was like really excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We'll have to kind of see if that happens, if your prediction comes true. But Alice, to bring you in on this, Timo Werner, the reason I want to ask you this is because I think there's quite strong links between Werner and Man United. I think it was back when Ralf Rangnick was manager. We saw a few links obviously this summer, but I think the strongest definitely were before Erik ten Hag came into the job. Do you think United personally missed out on him this summer? Because I like Haaland, don't get me wrong, but 20 years of age, it's a bit much to ask him to do it, 37, 38 games a season. So is it something that United missed out on? And do you think Werner will work for Tottenham?
I wasn't too bothered about Werner to Man United. There was obviously like 4 seasons ago that I would have wanted him, but then he went to Chelsea and was a bit meh. I think that he's a better signing for Tottenham than he is for Man United because one, at Man United, he'll just be in the graveyard shift with absolutely no service, whereas Tottenham are actually providing service this season. And I think sort of he would suit Ange Ball more than whatever Ten Hag style players at the moment, which is a lot of question marks around what he's trying to do. I think with United, we needed to bring in an experienced striker to go alongside Højlund because he only recently turned 20. Like, he's very young and very inexperienced. And I think for me, we should have got. It's so hard to know because there's not loads of options out there. But we should have maybe looked at someone like Taremi of Porto, who got like 20 plus goals in the Portuguese league, because at least that way you've got someone that could just give a bit of cover there and something to learn from. Or if Man United normally do this thing where we sign like 35-year-old strikers on loan that Real Madrid don't want anymore. I tell you what, if Benzema's wages weren't crazy or all of that kind of stuff, I would have been open to that. Even someone like Lewandowski on a loan as they're coming towards the end would have been ideal. So I think United do need to bring in a striker, but I don't think Werner would be the right fit for us, especially because we need someone, I think, that can hold up play quite well and has got to be used to not having much of the ball, whereas I think Werner likes to run in behind a bit more.
Yeah, no, he does. I think he suits his Spurs system much more than, as you say, Ten Hag's rather unpredictable and ever-changing style of play. Team Man United, doesn't it? It really depends on what Man United turn up. I think first half, really, really strong. Not as much the second half. Maybe expect that as the game goes on, fatigue, etc. But Haz, I'm going to come to you because I know you wanted me to bring it up. Brennan Johnson, we finally got there. Firstly, my question to you, what do you make of his start to life as a whole at Spurs? And are fans right to question him, or is it too soon?
Okay, I think his start's been very disappointing, if I'm being honest. And I'm not saying that because he's not scoring like 15 to 20 goals. It's more the fact that he's got one goal. And the thing, he's not like he's a bench player like in the system. I think Johnson's played almost every game he's been fit. So I just been really disappointed. Like, if he scored 5 goals, I'd be telling you something completely different.
But is it all about goals in the Ange system?
Yeah, yes, it is. Because he wants goals from everywhere. And it's not just that his assists, like his delivery, especially in the United game. I don't know if you saw an instance when he had the ball on the right and he put in one of the worst crosses I've ever seen. Like, all over everyone. But this is not just a one-time thing, right? I see this every game. I think he's the most frustrating player I've ever seen at Tottenham for a very long time. And he kind of reminds me of Dele Alli. And I hate to bring this up. Dele Alli in his last year at Poch, it was just, you could see it was near the end for him at that point. But it's just, because Johnson reminds me of a lot of Ali. Like, the same stylistically, they're very similar. But Johnson has a lot more pace. It's just, in Johnson, you can see there's a player that can actually score loads of goals and assists, but he's just not doing it. His delivery and his end product is just not. It's just not there. He's just not doing it. He takes. But you said it.
You just said it there. There's potential in the player, so we've got.
There is potential. He's only 22, but for me, I'd only give him one more season next year. If he doesn't do it next season, I'm not waiting more than 2 years. Like, you can't just keep these players for more than 2 years if they don't come out and do something. I'm not saying I expect him to score 20 goals a season. Just, I kind of expected a bit more. Not because of his price tag, just because he's been playing so much.
Foul Throw podcast says, as we spoke about on Saturday, Harry, Johnson's been underrated. It's easy to look at his goals and assists, but he's performed well. I personally agree. What I will remind people, and I want to kind of bring this in, I kind of want to be in the middle of this. We nearly sold Gareth Bale to Birmingham for 3 million, right? We nearly sold Son based on his first season. Something me and you have discussed for a long time, that we nearly sold Son, etc. And for me, we're at a very similar point with Brennan Johnson, and fans can admit that there's.
But that's why I said to give him one more season. Because whilst I'm sitting here pulling my hair out every game and getting up, you know, like that cross I told you about, I got up and I just started. I was fuming. I just went off on one.
No, I get that.
But
he's been picked for a reason. Skill could play on the left, Richardson could play on the right.
This is something I have every game. It's not like I'm watching Johnson and 1 out of 10 games his delivery's been poor. It's just there's been instances in so many games where he gets on the right, he's one-on-one with the defender. I'm either screaming at him to take him on and put in a cross, and he just hits at the defender, or he has an instance where he has a chance to shoot and he just passed it, or he just.
Okay, look at Richarlison.
Decision making is just so wrong. It's just.
You've defended Richarlison, I rightly so. Giving him time. So you say Johnson needs another season. So I personally would be very quick. I'll just wait on that. But
I am just saying what I've seen this season. I'm just very frustrated.
No, that's fine. Fair enough. You're absolutely entitled to do your opinion. That's absolutely fine. But when it does come to some in particular, as well as YouTubers, I think they go too far. Some of the accusations against Johnson is a bit concerning, but everyone is allowed an opinion, and that's what's beautiful about football. Billie, at this moment in time, where do you stand on Brennan Johnson and his start to life at Spurs? Is patience needed? Is it right to ask questions? Is it too soon to judge? Where are you at?
I think it is right to ask questions because he is. There was a few instances yesterday where if he'd had a bit more quality on the ball, we'd have won the game. There was a particular move which started off with Vicario. It was a real decent move. Played pretty much a whole around our back line. Ended up with Richarlison being put through. Johnson being put through on the right, and then there was an easy cut back to Richarlison, which would have been a certain goal, and he messed up that cross. So I think it's right to ask questions, but I'm nowhere near ready to give up on this guy yet. I think he's a young guy. I think if we take something from Ange, sort of take a leaf out of Ange's book, we got to get behind these guys and back them until they're no longer with us. And I think you can see why he's there because he's almost perfect for Ange. And I think he was very clearly an Ange signing. Ange knows what he wants, and Ange picks him all the time. I think Ange is a big fan of his, and I think Ange is the right man to get the best out of him. I do think he's going to improve because we've got the manager that improves players, and he is a perfect system player for this system. Like getting in behind, cutting back to Richarlison. We've seen him do it against Everton. He will do it plenty more times this season. So while I do think it's right to question what he's doing at the moment, he was particularly frustrating yesterday. I don't think it's time to give up on this guy at all.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Alice, coming to you next with a completely different question because I want to move on now and focus on a little bit of transfers. So in terms of Man United, not a lot has obviously happened so far in this window. So from now until the window closes, 31st of Jan, what do you want to see in terms of incomings and outgoings?
It's a difficult one, really, because United are in a sort of situation where, all right, the season's kind of over. Like, it sort of is. We're out of Europe. I don't think we're going to get top four because Tottenham are good this season, Villa are good this season. Arsenal have dropped off, but they will get top four. Man City, Liverpool. Like, I think we're not in really contention for Europe. So I'm kind of like, well, the season's over. Would I rather us do another silly panic signing like Begos Gallo, or would I rather us not sign anyone? I'm at the point where I'd rather us not sign anyone than sign someone crap again. To be honest, I think if we have the money, which I know we don't unless we sell because of all this FFP stuff, if we had the money to go and bring in someone that I know would be in like the 5-year plan, because I know we want another centre back, I know we want another midfielder, I know we want another wing, like an Elise, a Nico Williams for right wing, or a sort of a Tolibo at centre back, or Antonio Silva. If we had the money to do one of those deals, I'd be like, let's go do it. But I don't want any panic signings anymore. I want people that are in the 5-year plan or an experienced striker to come in, because if Højlund gets injured, then you're going to have to play Rashford at striker out of position, which is what I don't want to see, because Martial's kind of just, Ten Hag's kind of just been like adios to Martial. So I'd probably say a striker on loan, if anything, because I don't want to see Rashford at striker. He's better at left wing. But I think other than that, season's over. Let's get rid of the board. Then we've got Ratcliffe coming in. He wants to change the recruitment structure, take Dan Ashworth at Newcastle, bring in Paul Mitchell. I think he was once at Spurs. Sort of completely change the recruitment. And I think, well, do I really want the people that spent £85 million on Anthony to spend money on someone in January? Probably not. So I think I'm kind of like, let's just wait till the summer, because we're not going to be able to get anyone in the long-term plans. But if a big striker's available, I'd go for it if we can get someone on loan that's good.
Yeah, thank you, Alice. I look at kind of United, and you use the right word for me, panic buying. You spent the money in recent years, but for me, signings like you mentioned Igalo, obviously in there. We've seen with Weghorst, Mason Mount, Anthony. They're all, maybe they're not panic buys. Maybe you're just very keen to get the player and pay too much. But I look at those situations and go, money could have perhaps been spent elsewhere. But time will tell. We look at Mason Mount. Do you reckon he'll still work out, actually, Alice, Mason Mount? Does he need time?
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why we signed him, because I think we needed more of an 8 that was a 6/8 hybrid, and I think the kind of midfielder we needed would have been more of a Moises Caicedo type midfielder. So I was like, he's not really the profile we need, but I guess Eriksen's legs are going, and I think out of possession, Mount will put in a shift. But I won't give Mount any stick, because he's played 4 games this injured. He's been this season. He's been injured. And when he played, he wasn't like impressive, but he wasn't anywhere near the worst player on the pitch. Like, he was probably in the top 4 best players. It's probably the third or fourth best performer when he played. Was okay, wasn't good, wasn't bad. 6 out of 10. Did good work out of possession. Followed Ten Hag's instructions. Looks like a system player. So I'm very much with Mason Mount. He's been injured. I'll happily give him the whole of next season to prove himself. But if he isn't doing anything next season, then I think you've got to just say, look, this isn't working.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So moving on to Tottenham's next game, it is Manchester City at home, FA Cup 4th round. Billie, at this moment in time, obviously a long way away, 11, 12 days away, how are you feeling ahead of the game, and what would your team look like, assuming that Kulusevski's back? Will anyone else be back, do you reckon?
I was really excited for the FA Cup, and then we've got the nightmare draw, but you know, we have a good record. Weirdly, it's one of the weirdest things in football that we have this weirdly good record against Man City. And I think if you look at their fans' reaction to the draw, their fans are more disappointed with it than our fans. And you know, at home under the lights on a Friday night, it should be a really, really decent atmosphere. And I'm going to make a prediction. Actually, I'm going to think that I think Maddison's going to be back. I think he's going to be back for that game. I don't think he might not start, but I think he'll be back for it. And if Maddison is back, coming off the bench, we've got Kulusevski back. I think we could nick it. We could nick it. You know, Man City can beat any team in the world. They're, you know, arguably the best team in the world. But there's just something about Tottenham, Man City, isn't there? We just have something on them. And just going to pray that we can nick it on that day. You never know.
Do you know what? I'd feel confident, Billie, if De Bruyne wasn't out. But you watched that Newcastle game. I just flicked it when Newcastle won the game. De Bruyne comes on, right? And I get that a player can change a game, but he turned 0 points into 3 points just with a flick of a finger. He hardly had to move for it either. So it worries me just how good he is. And they've got Haaland yet to come back. I do believe Haaland will be out for our games. Obviously, that is a relief for sure. But De Bruyne is the player that I worry about. So I think it'd be really tough for our players. Yeah.
One thing I will say is Pep can be a bit strange in the cup sometimes, can't he? Like you can imagine not playing De Bruyne or something like that. He will do. I think he'll do a couple of. I don't think obviously Ederson might have been injured in that Newcastle game, but he might be back. But I don't think he'll play Ederson. Yeah, I don't think he'll play Ederson anyway. No. I think that Pep's prone to putting a few curveballs in the cup game, so which could help us. So you never know.
Big up to everyone in the chat. Haz, how are you feeling ahead of the game right now? Because obviously, probably the hardest draw we could have got. But what would your kind of team look like? John, talk me through your whole team, if fit.
Vicario, the same back four as last time. Obviously, Romero, Udogie, Van de Ven, and Porro. I assume we'll get no Bissouma or Sarr, so it's going to have to be Højbjerg, Bentancur, and either Kulusevski or Maddison, depending on Maddison's fitness.
I doubt Maddison will start. If he's back, he'd be benched, I would have thought. But we'll see.
Obviously, we don't have anyone else, so we'll have to put Johnson,
Positivity.
Charlison, and Werner. Actually, surprisingly, if we're playing them at the Etihad, I'd be more worried. But because we've got them at home, I'm a bit more confident.
Right.
So to me, it might actually depend on the benches, because if Maddison's on the bench for us and De Bruyne's on the bench for them, it could just depend on who brings on who first and that sort of thing in that game. Also depends, obviously, Kulusevski, how fit is he going to be when he comes back? He was just ill, so he should be all right. Johnson winner. Actually, I think Werner's probably going to score in that game. I'd put money on Werner. I don't know why. I have a feeling he's going to score. It's coming. I know he fluffed both his shots at United, but I just have a feeling he's going to score. Because everyone's generally he doesn't score goals, so he's gonna have to score.
Wow, I hope he proves people wrong.
Yeah.
What would your score prediction be for the game if you had to commit in 11 days' time?
2-1 Spurs.
Confident. Okay, Billie, you as confident?
I'm going to go 2-2. That'll be a replay. They never scored at our stadium. They haven't ever scored there. So
true.
I think this will probably be the time that they do.
Well, the way we play is going to invite chances.
Is it a replay still, or is it does not go to penalty?
Yeah, replay. Round after, I believe. The fifth round is where we keep going. I know it's not great. I see the point of. I do get why replays are there. They do benefit smaller clubs. Maybe in games like this, you go, can it be decided on the night, but it's what it is. It's a massive benefit for us that we've got 11 days though before our next game. With the players we've got out, only one Premier League game in January. That is, we can't complain about that. Alice, as a neutral point of view, one, I want to know your score prediction for Tottenham and City, and who will you be supporting? I could take a guess, but I want to check with you first.
Yeah, obviously Tottenham over City, 100%.
Yeah.
I think, as you said, Tottenham have this weird record against Man City where they always cause Man City problems. I think sometimes just because Tottenham are quite good on the break and going forward, and City leave space in behind, I think Spurs take advantage of that. So I actually fancy Tottenham, and I also have this sort of theory about City because they've won the treble like last year. Like sometimes games will like mean less for them unless it's like the serious Premier League games or the serious Champions League games. Whereas with Tottenham, they'll want a trophy, especially because they've got this progress under and they believe that they could win a trophy this season. So I actually think that Tottenham could maybe get a 2-1 winner.
Okay, thank you very much. And Alice, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe United's next game is Wolves away, I think on the 1st of February or something like that. So if you could give your score prediction, it's a long way away. What, I'm talking 15, 16 days away, but your score predictions are Wolves away.
Oh my God, honestly, I forgot about that.
Little challenge in there.
I just don't even know with Man United because sometimes we can show up and be good, and sometimes we can just be crap. Away from home are not the best. Wolves have actually been quite good recently, and if you take away like all the awful VAR decisions Wolves have got, they'd be above us on points. And I think if they win, they go above us on points. I think they're only like three or 2 points behind us or something. So I think having Martinez and Casemiro probably back and being able to start by then, I'd say that United can win that 1-0. But whenever we play Wolves, it is 1-0 on 0-0. It is always the deadest, most boring game. I think 1-1 is written all over it, but I'll say 1-0 United.
And Wolves look really good under Gary O'Neill, so credit to him. Before we get on to the questions that people put forward for the podcast on Twitter to wrap up for today's show, before we get to that, little question in here that I always throw in, and it's a little bit different today. How many points will we get from our next 2 Premier League fixtures? This is Tottenham, and Tottenham's next 2 Premier League fixtures are Brentford at home and Everton away. Not easy at all. Haz, how many points are you getting out of those 2 games?
4. We're going to beat Brentford because we have to beat Brentford because it's on my birthday. We don't beat Brentford, I'm going to be fuming. And then we're going to draw to Everton. Yeah,
that's what I think as well. Billy?
I think we'll get 6 points from them, to be honest, man. I think by that time we'll be right back in the swing of things. Maddison will be back. We'll beat Brentford at home and we'll nick it against Everton away because Maddison will start that game.
Okay, fair enough. Question from Foul Through Podcast, because we might as well get onto the questions now. It says, FA Cup but finish 5th, or no FA Cup winning, finish top 4. I know my answer. Haz, I know your answer, but give it.
FA Cup and 5th.
I mean, it's been 15 years without a trophy. I mean, any trophy is surely better than no trophy by a long way. Billy, where do you stand?
I would take FA Cup in 16th if it came down to it. I'm absolutely desperate to end this trophy drought, man. I'd take it over anything. Yeah, I'd take it over anything. Yeah, FA Cup for sure, without a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt.
Thank you. Fair enough. And so moving on to, thank you for your question, Foul Throw Podcast. Moving on to questions that people put forward on X or Twitter this morning. How's to give you the first question? Carly says, what would it take for you to consider this season a success for Spurs at this moment in time?
I mean, whilst we just said the FA Cup thing,
good question.
I don't really expect us to win the FA Cup. I think from now it's a bit of a long.
If we beat City, though, we have a chance.
Yeah, if we beat City, that's we'll, when it gets to that point, we'll discuss it, I guess. But for me, it's just finishing in Europe, I guess. I mean, for me, Europe isn't that big of a thing, but maybe a bigger pull for a striker because we're finishing Europe. But for Ange, it's just transitional season. I know we've kind of exceeded the expectations, but I don't think, top 6 maybe.
Really? I'm being honestly sitting here at this moment in time, watch this go and backfire, but I think we can, as Alice says, finish inside the top 4. I think it's achievable. City and Liverpool, okay, I don't think we're getting near them. At this moment in time, and of course it can be recovered, I think that obviously it depends on injuries like it does a lot of other clubs, but I believe that we can go toe-to-toe with your Arsenals, your Aston Villas, until the end of the season. And that, for me, looks like 3rd and 4th place. So I generally think that at this moment in time, top 4 is definitely achievable. And I think even third, if we play it right, but everything obviously has to go right. We've got a tough end to the season. I respect that. And absolutely take top 6, but I think top 4 is achievable at this moment in time. Billie, question from Barney, who's in the chat, so big up Barney. Barney says, are there any standout players in the Spurs Academy that you see breaking into the first team in the coming years, or any players in the like we see in the first team, like your Donnellys and Dorringtons, that you think are the closest to really securing their place in the team?
Oh yeah, Jamie Donnelly, without a doubt. I think he's going to be a really special player for us. I think there's 3 that I would name. One of them being Jamie Donnelly, the other one being Dorrington, who are obviously 2 obvious ones because they make the squad. But another one that I'm really excited about is Alfie Devine as well, because I think he's had. We have a pretty poor record of loans, Tottenham. I mean, not particularly good at it. We've just recalled Scarlett, but Devine seems to be playing week in, week out for Port Vale and getting rave reviews over there. I think he's going to be a big player for the future. So any one of those 3 for sure. I think there's going to be some. I think, particular in Donnelly and Devine, I think we've got 2 of the best English talents around. And
Absolutely.
then obviously one more just came to my head.
You talk about younger players as well. Yeah, absolutely. We do. And that gap between the youth academy, hopefully we can reduce it, because obviously at the moment it's quite big. Players not getting that much of a chance with an injury crisis, but we've got to treat it seriously. So I do respect that. But Ashley Phillips, I know obviously not through the academy, but I think I'm really excited about him. I think maybe he's a step ahead of Dorrington, but we'll have to see. But he, at this moment in time, excites me, and I think the low move is really good for him. Alice, I'm going to give the next question to you, because it is actually Spurs question, but I'm going to twist it. It says, if everyone is fit, who's your best 11? So for Man United, what would your best 11 look like?
Onana in goal. I think right back depends on the game, because if you're coming up against a tricky winger, you want Wan-Bissaka to lock them down. But if you want to have a bit more possession and attack, you've got Delo, who can invert as well and come into midfield. So I think that just depends on the game. Martinez and Varane at centre-back, Luke Shaw left-back, Casemiro DM, Maino centre mid, Bruno as the 10, and then I'd say Rashford on the left, Højlund up top, and Garnacho on the right.
Okay, thank you very much. And Haz, do you want to answer that in a Spurs point of view, if everyone is fit? Who your best 11 will be? Do you have some crazy opinions? So go for it.
All right, is it really that bad? So I'm going for Vicario, obviously, in goal. I think the back four kind of picks itself. Udogie, Porro, Romero, and Van der Ven, even though I haven't seen any of Dragisin to really judge at this point whether he would get in or not. And then my midfield is Bentancur as the 6, Sarr's the 8, and Maddison's the 10.
No Basuma.
No Basuma. No. And then I'm going... Okay, I'm going to contradict myself in a minute. This front, so Richarlison has to play up front. Son has to play, and I'd put in Werner, but I don't know which side I'm putting either of them.
Good job you're not the manager. It's not a bad team. I'll give you that. No, I think I'll do all right. But there you go. That's Haz's team. Billie, actually, I want to ask you the same question as well, because it's really, really hard one. When everyone's fit, which is obviously hypothetically is not going to happen, is it really? What would your starting 11 look like?
I would go very, very similar. I'd go same defense, same midfield, but up top I would go Kulusevski, Richarlison, and Son. I think the midfield is the biggest issue because we've got such incredible players back there. But I think Bentancur is undroppable, Maddison is undroppable, and the way Salah has been playing this season, I think he's made himself undroppable. So I agree completely with Haz at midfield, and then I'd go Kulusevski, Richarlison, and Son.
Yeah, and I probably agree with that. I think I'll keep it like that. I like Johnson, but Kulusevski for me, although I don't necessarily like him on the right, you can't put him in that midfield with a fully fit midfield. You just can't take any of those 3 out based on form, caliber of a player. We look at Maddison and Bentancur; they have to play if fit. Sarr absolutely proves his right to play.
This brings up a good point, because I was discussing this with someone about Werner and Son. So they play on the same side. On the right side, we don't really have as many options, because even Solomon plays more on the left. He's better on the left from what I've seen, at least, than on the right. True. So maybe in the summer we probably need to bring in a right-sided player, because Johnson, I'm not saying whether he stays or not. I'm assuming he's going to stay anyway. But we're going to need another option down there because of European football, most likely.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of our wingers play on the left. They don't really play on the right.
But that's why I can't express enough the importance of how important outgoings are in a transfer window. To be able to bring players in like right wings, we offload players because you don't want a big squad like your Chelsea's and Nottingham Forest have experienced recently. It's really difficult because you have a lot of problems in the dressing room. It's tough on the wages, it limits you to buy players. So if we move players out the door, then why not? Absolutely, why not? Next question is from Byron. I'm going to give to you, Billie. He says, who impressed you most yesterday? Obviously, you mentioned Bentuk, or is there anyone else who, I know we kind of covered it, but anyone else who stood out for you?
I got two answers. One of them is Udogie, because I thought he had a really, Garnacho is one of the informed wingers in the league, scoring some banging goals this season, and he kept him largely quiet, which I think is a real tough task. And I think the way he was getting up and down the pitch is fantastic as well. And my second answer is my guy, Emerson Royale, just because he came on as a substitute wearing gloves and then put on another pair of gloves. And I think anyone can argue that is the highlight of the match.
Oh, I didn't expect that. Well, thank you very much. Haz, I know that you feel fairly strongly about Oliver Skipp. So the last question is about Oliver Skipp and what his future is at Tottenham. So firstly, what do you think will happen with Oliver Skipp's future? And secondly, what do you want to happen with Oliver Skipp's future? Go for it.
I think both will happen. So I don't see Skipp leaving this window, even though there's a link to Palace. But I think in the summer, I think he could be going. I don't know where, but I just don't see him after.
On loan or on loan with an obligation?
Permanent. Permanent in the summer.
What's his kind of level then for you? Is it Premier League? Is it abroad? Is it Championship? What do you think?
I mean, is there really that much between him and Winks? Let's be honest, not that much. It's weird because with Skipp, I think it's like a symptom of like Spurs central English midfielders or something. They break through. And then we have all this like hope for them. And at the beginning, they're so enthusiastic to like impress the manager or whoever's in charge, or they seem to play like out their skin. And then over time, whether it's to do with like change of managers or change of style, or they just seem to just never progress. And I think Skipp is just another one of those midfielders. And unfortunately, I think he'll end up at someone like I mentioned Palace earlier. I think he'll go somewhere like that. Or even someone like Luton. I hate to
which he would suit both those clubs, by the way. Yeah, as a DM, I can see that.
A long-term future at Spurs. I know Conte and Jose said that he could be future Spurs captain, but he just hasn't really pushed on since those years. So it's a real shame because this is like the fourth or fifth Spurs English midfielder that's come through and just not done anything since the first year.
But I think that's a negative of constantly changing styles and changing managers and having managers that don't see either those players and the way they play. Winks is doing really well at Leicester, and I think a fully fit and high-performing Winks is Premier League level. And I think maybe would suit this team. So Winks, for me, has a little bit more to his game than Oliver Skipp.
See, I really like Ryan Mason, but obviously, everyone knows what happened with Mason. We sold him to Hull and then he had that, injury. But I remember at that time, I didn't actually want us to sell Mason. I really liked him, but yeah, he was my favourite out of all of them. Not because obviously he's an ex-manager, what I just discussed. I just like him.
Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah. The question was from Anthony. So big up, Anthony. Thank you very much for the question. And I'm going to create a last question, and I want to give to you, Alice, because I asked this question with Spurs guests a lot, so I want to kind of mix it up. Where do you think, obviously, you talked about the season potentially being over, where do you think you will finish come the end of the season? Because I look at United right now, and I go probably about 6th. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think one thing that we have that also Tottenham have is that one game a week not being in Europe, where I guess even the West Hams, the Brightons, the Villas who are above us, they're going to have those extra games. And I think Villa will obviously finish above us, but I think the West Hams and the Brightons could drop off with those extra games. And I think we're behind them right now. So I think it's a battle between Man U, Newcastle and Chelsea to try and nick that 6th spot ahead of the Brightons and West Hams, and I think it might just depend massively on injuries, to be honest, if I'm going to be honest with you. So I think 6th or 7th, but you just don't know with this United. It could be worse.
Are you still fully behind Ten Hag at this moment in time?
Yeah and no. I think I'm very much aware that if we just sack another manager, it's not going to solve the issues. There's player issues, there's board issues. I think for me, I'm very much what are we going to achieve by sacking a manager on the spot right now and bringing in nothing?
Well, unfortunately, Alice, I know
it has to be the end of the season.
But I just want to say something quick. From when I'm watching him, he just looks a defeated man every time I see him. So I think he's gone at the end of the season especially because of the new ownership. Yeah. I think he won't be there. Not because he's done so badly that he deserves to be sacked, but I just don't think it's worked out. But United
Yes.
had this problem for 10 years since Ferguson left. I think the biggest mistake they made was from the beginning putting Moyes in charge. They should have sort of gone for like an experienced manager first, and then kept the same level-ish, top four and like a trophy, let's say, for 2-3 years. And there was someone like Ancelotti or Jose even at that point, something like that. And then brought in a younger manager to kind of do the long-term thing, because at least they wouldn't have fallen out that bracket. But because they've had those so many years of like going up and down, it's just at this point, like you said, I just don't know. When I watch United, I just don't know what their identity is. I expected Ten Hag, if I'm being honest, he had a very good first season. But I expected him to start implementing Ajax style of play to United this season. But
Yeah, that's
the
the
amount of
problem.
Ajax players he signed, I was like, come on, I thought this guy was going to do it. And then he came out after like one game and he said, I can't do the style or something. I was like, what?
Yeah,
He's all these Ajax players.
that's the problem with us, is like we see Ange implementing a style of play after injuries in 6 months, and we're saying, well, Ten Hag had a good first season, third in a trophy, considering the mess that was under Ragnick. We know he's a good manager, and we know that there's bigger problems with these players. And I think if you sack a manager every 2 years, this cycle will continue. That more needs to change. But I think I'm at a point now with Ten Hag where it's just about progress. It's not results. Like if we finish 10th this season, but all of a sudden I can see what he's trying to do, and I can see his style of play, and I can actually see like progress and good performance, I'd say, you know what, back him given the money. But if it's the same nothing and there's no identity, then that's when I'm kind of like, we're going to have to look in the summer at replacing him. But I'll give him to the end of the season and make my decision then.
I just wouldn't be inspired by him. Whenever I watch him, I'm just like, I can see what it's first like.
But based on United, what they've done last season, winning the League Cup and finishing third, for me, he has the right to at least see the season out.
No, I think we'll see the season out. I don't see them sacking him anytime soon.
I think you want, obviously, identity is a big problem, Man United. You don't know whether they're going to turn up or not. And it's not necessarily that.
And I don't think it's completely his fault, Harry. I actually think it's partly because of the club, because, players like Sancho, they finally got rid of him. But all these bad apples, it's been a history of United this past few years also.
Yeah,
where they
that's why you get rid of the manager.
Held on to Pogba when this is back Jose. I mean, there's so many instances when this has happened, but this is just another symptom of it. Like with Sancho, the situation apparently split the dressing room, and also this other talk. But it's just like, if you're the club, you back the manager. If he doesn't want to play, just get rid of him. Yeah,
if it's sack or you sack or back at Ten Hag, you can't just get through the transfer window signing or selling nobody. You got to take it. Obviously, FFP does get in the way, but you've got to take a stance on either.
This window, Harry, then it kind of might show that might not be here. I don't know.
Or does it show that they're happy with what he's doing and they believe that when players come back, they'll be strong? Personally, I look at it, Man United massively overachieved last season, so he definitely deserves to see the season out. I think, obviously, I said the identity problem is an issue, but they've been unlucky with injuries. So for me, I'll give him the benefit of doubt. See how United go to the end of the season, because they can still turn it around. I think United will have a really strong second half of the season. I think they're massively reduced the gap to Arsenal. I can see it then kind of finish in 5th, maybe 6th. I can actually see that. But again, they've got to get it right. They've got to be lucky with injuries.
I think United's biggest loss also with Ten Hag, not really a loss, but the failure to sign De Jong kind of killed the momentum that window. I remember. So where I work as a United fan, every day was saying we're signed De Jong. I got kind of sick of hearing it. And by the end of the winter, you guys didn't even sign him. So I was just like, what? But I do feel like it was kind of like with I relate to Spurs when we had AVB. We didn't sign Moutinho, and that kind of like killed his tenure eventually because he didn't have that creator he wanted. And I kind of feel like it's kind of similar with Ten Hag. He didn't get De Jong, so it kind of couldn't. He's bought an Eriksen, but Eriksen's sort of like a short-term fix-ish. And Bruno's not exactly pushed on, so I think that's kind of like a thing as well. I don't know. It's not really worked out. I don't think so far.
Yeah,
the first season was unbelievable. I thought it was brilliant, but yeah, this season's just
didn't sign the players to play the Ajax way, because Casemiro is a completely different profile to De Jong. So I'm happy with signing Casemiro, but it's like he wants this player, we don't get him. Player of a different profile, and I think that's not helped the mixed recruitment.
Yeah.
Before we end today's show, Billie, where do you stand, obviously as a neutral, on Erik Ten Hag at this moment in time?
Do you know what? I wanted him as Tottenham manager a few years ago. When we were linked with him, I thought he'd be the right man for the job. I don't think he's a bad manager. I just think the conditions at Man United are just not really well suited to anyone at the moment. And I think until they get that right, no one's particularly going to succeed there. Yeah, I just don't. I think there's a lot of structural issues at Man United that need to be sorted before Ten Hag. But what I am confused by is, as Alice and both has mentioned, is that when you look at this Man United team, like I don't see any kind of identity to it at all. I don't see any kind of the stuff that we played at Ajax over 2 legs against Tottenham in the Champions League. They were brilliant. They were absolutely brilliant against us. And we haven't really seen that at Man United this year. So I don't think it's all his fault, but I do think he would do a better job.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is it for today's show. Good place to end. So massively appreciate to everyone who did tune in. Most importantly, massively appreciated. Again, if you watched, listened after on Spotify, any other podcast platform, you listen live on YouTube, people who put their questions forward, and massively appreciate as well to 3 fabulous guests. Firstly, Billie, thank you very much for coming on your debut on the show. Where can people find you for people who don't know? I mean, they should know, shouldn't they?
Yeah, it's like
just Billie on Twitter. But before I go, I just wanted to say, man, I work in education, obviously, so I just wanted to say the things that you campaign for are really close to my heart. So I just wanted to say it's been a pleasure to come on your show and keep doing it, man, because you got a lot of teachers fighting behind you as well. So keep going for it, man. It's a real inspiration.
Oh, Joe, it means a lot. Thank you very much, Billie. Sorry. Oh, something's just come down behind me. There you are. I don't know what the hell that was, but we'll worry about that after.
Like a ghost in Harry's room, I guess. I don't know.
Something's just fallen off the wall, nearly hit me in the head, but luckily it didn't. Got away with that one. So thank you very much, Billie. It's been a pleasure to have you on. Call you regular on the show now. Not happy to say that, but you are. Push yourself in, but we do a lot of streams together.
So you can find me on a Friday at Southie Cottage.
So you're used to the question. I don't need to ask you the question. Go for it.
and obviously my channel Haz Spur TV. I do match reaction videos now, and I stream like once or twice a week. So you can find me on there. And I pop around very often on other people's channels. Like I was on the United channel on like the Thursday night or something before the game, and I do that sort of thing every so often. So yeah, and big up to everyone in the chat as well, listening live on YouTube. Alice, your first time on the show. Thank you very much for coming on. It was a real pleasure. I really wanted to get you on, so thank you very much for coming on. Where can people find you for people who don't know, want to check out some United stuff or some football stuff in general? So go for it.
Thanks very much, Harry, for having me on the channel. It was a great show. Just type Alice Talks Football in sort of TikTok, Twitter, YouTube. I'll come up on there. I have a second channel on YouTube where I do talk about Spurs, Liverpool, Arsenal, general stuff called Aquila Football, which is just Alice spelled backwards. So definitely check that one out as well if you want a bit of Spurs content here and there.
Yeah, absolutely. Go check out all 3 of these guys on social media. You definitely want to be following them all. If you want to follow me, you can there, Harry Scar 22. But most importantly, subscribe to the channel. Turn the notifications bell on because keep you up to date throughout the January transfer window. Daily Spurs updates, match day vlogs, match previews, match reactions. These weekly live shows every Monday, 8 p.m. on YouTube, analysing an in particular game or previewing the next game. So massively appreciate if you are listening after on any other podcast platform. Your Spotify's, your Amazon Music, your Apple Musics. Don't forget to give us a follow and 5-star review. A lot of people listen on there, so massively appreciate it. But as we always say on this show, apart from Alice, of course, up the Spurs.
You were working as a manager at Celtic Park when we met you. We picked you out, you shook us up and turned us around. You've turned us into something new. Ange Postecoglou, you know that we believe it when you say you're gonna change it. Ange Postecoglou, we're the mighty Tottenham and nobody's gonna stop them. Oh, we look so fine in blue and lily white. And then he said to me, I'm from a land down under. Postecoglou, baby. Postecoglou, oh.